What do you know about the Canary Islands? Where are they? And how are the Canary Islands connected with Franco, astronomy, and Lord Nelson? Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And together with about 50 years teaching English between us, Reza and I are going to help you vocalize your vocabulary, grow your grammar, and perfect your pronunciation. How are you, Reza?
I'm doing well, Craig. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. It's been a great week, and I'm pleased to be podcasting with you again from Valencia, Spain. So before we speak about the Canary Islands, we've got a voice message from Gemma from Ciudad Real.
Hello Reza, hello Craig. This is Gemma from Ciudad Real. I would like to congratulate us due to your very good job. I noticed that my English is improving, and this is very good because the next September I'm going to do my exam to certificate C1 level. I only have to do speaking ability because the last June I passed the rest of the abilities. Wish you luck. Bye-bye.
Well, thanks very much, Gemma. That's a very nice message. We could understand you very clearly. What did you think, Craig?
Yep, thank you very much for sending that in to us. And I do apologize if this is arriving late because we are in September, but I don't think this podcast will be published until October. So you have already done your speaking test, and we wish you the best of luck. I hope that by the time you hear this, you are happy because you've got a pass. And congratulations for passing the other parts of the test back in June. So well done and good luck with the speaking.
Yes, we're very happy to hear that your speaking is improving and you're listening as well. Hopefully the podcast has something to do with that. And your message was very, very clear. However, sorry for being fussy, chickies mickeys, but there is one little thing you could correct. A very, very common mistake, which many foreign speakers make. You said that you're going to be doing your exam the next September. In fact, we don't say the. You're going to do it next September. And you also said that you did something the last June, but it's last June, no the. Next September, last June.
Thanks very much for your message, Gemma. Another person who has had good results from an exam is Carla from Gran Canaria.
Hi Reza, hi Craig. I'm Carla from Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands. And well, I just wanted to say thank you very much because I've recently got my marks from my first certificate, which I did a month ago, and I had 177 points. And most of it is thanks to you guys because since I started to listen to your podcast, I've got better with my English. So thank you. And I was just going to say possible topic for your future podcasts, which could be about the Canary Islands. It's a very interesting thing to talk about. So I hope to hear from you guys, and thank you again. Bye.
Thank you very much, Carla, for your lovely message. I particularly liked the way you're pronouncing your glottal stops. The glottal stop is from where I grew up and learned to speak English in the south of England, where sometimes when a word particularly ends with the letter T, you don't say the letter, you don't pronounce the letter T. It kind of stops in the back of the throat. So Carla said, I got, not I got. I really liked your pronunciation, Carla, and I think it was very, very pleasant to listen to. Any comments, Reza?
I would say exactly the same. Your pronunciation and intonation was extremely good. very close to a native speaker. Well done, Carla.
And congratulations on getting the first B2 exam.
Yeah, 177 points is really good. Well done.
So we think it's a wonderful idea to speak a little about the Canary Islands because I was very interested in finding out some more information about this part of the world. One thing that I want to focus attention on is the pronunciation of island, because some Spanish speakers pronounce the S, and the S in the word island is a silent S. So Canary Islands. Canary Islands. The first S is silent.
Because if you say Iceland, you're talking about a specific country, Islandia.
Exactly.
Iceland, ICE, so island. The Canaries are islands.
So let's look at some main facts, the most important things perhaps about the islands. They are an autonomous community of Spain. So they are under the Spanish government at 100 kilometers west of Morocco in the Atlantic Ocean. So they are a long way from the Spanish mainland. Actually, 1,700 kilometers, which is quite a long way, although they are Spanish islands. How many people live there, Reza?
Just over 2 million people live permanently on the 7 islands. 7 islands, that's right. Tenerife, I'm going to say them as an English speaker would. Tenerife, Fuerteventura, Gran Canary or Gran Canaria, some people say, Lanzarote, La Palma, La Gomera, and El Hierro.
Have you been to any of those?
None of them. I would love to go to the Canary Islands. It's a dream of mine, but I haven't been yet. What about you?
I have been to Tenerife and Lanzarote, and sadly, many years ago, I went because in those days, in the 80s and 90s, it was a tourist destination from the UK, and you could buy a package deal of the flight and the hotel for a very reasonable price. So I didn't really get to know the islands. I didn't explore. The plane took us to the airport. The bus took us from the airport to the hotel. And the only thing we saw were the bars and restaurants around the hotel that were really aimed at tourists. So I didn't really get the experience of the islands. I just went there for the sun, the swimming pool, and the beer and the food, basically, just the rest. And it's a shame because these islands have a lot to offer. There's a lot to see. I did not know about La Gomera and El Hierro. Those were 2 islands that I didn't really identify with the Canary Islands, but the other islands, yes, I've heard of.
Well, in fact, there are even more islands. There are some smaller islands than even La Gomera and El Hierro, but nobody really thinks about them in the chain, La Cadena, or Archipelago, which is a chain of islands. There are very, very small islands, but I'm not sure if those really small islands are inhabited. Do you know if people live in the really, really small ones?
I think there are some that are inhabited. If I'm wrong, Carla, please correct me. But yeah, some are and some aren't. But the main islands are considered to be the 7 that we've already mentioned. And the others are not really very, very famous.
Well, as most people in Spain certainly know, the Canary Islands are famed. They're famous for their very mild and mostly very stable climate. Just to give you an example, apparently in January, which is the coldest month, the average temperature is about 18 degrees.
Wow, that's lovely.
Not very cold for August.
A lot warmer than the UK.
Yeah. And in August, which is the hottest month, it doesn't get on average hotter than 26.2 degrees. So that's not too hot. So very pleasant all the year round, neither too hot nor too cold most of the year.
So we could say it's quite a temperate climate, quite a pleasant temperate climate. And of course, because of this wonderful weather and the beauty of the islands, they get a lot of visitors, a lot of tourists. Reza said before that there are about 2 million people, just over 2 million people inhabiting the islands. But in one year, they might receive as many as 12 million visitors. 12 million visitors. And as I said before, a lot of them are British because of the tour operators operating package tours and flights to the hotels on the islands.
I imagine a good place, Carla, to spot British tourists is La Playa de los Ingleses. There's a famous beach called La Playa de los Ingleses, but not because of recent package tours. It's strange. Apparently for centuries, it's been called La Playa de los Ingleses. And I bet there's no shortage of Ingleses there.
In fact, I'm wondering, Carla, if you've had a lot of contact with the tourists that visit you in La Palma, and that could be a reason why your accent's so lovely and so British to hear.
As Craig said earlier, the Canary Islands are known to be very beautiful. Geographically, they're very interesting. Apart from the beauty all around, they also have the highest mountain in all of Spain, Mount Teide, which is 3,718 meters high.
Wow.
It's higher than anywhere in the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
So you may not think of the Canary Islands for mountains, but there are the highest in Spain and one of the highest in Europe.
And the accent, the way people speak in the Canary Islands is different to many other parts of Spain. And as you probably know, when you go from region to region in many countries, the way that people speak changes a little, even though they're speaking the same language. And some people say the accent of people when they speak Spanish in the Canary Islands sounds very similar to some Latin American accents rather than an accent from Spain. In fact, this August, I was traveling with two lovely people from La Palma, Rafa and Mari, if you're listening, hello. And they did have a very charming, very attractive accent when they spoke Spanish.
Yes, whenever I meet someone from the Canary Islands who hasn't lost their accent, I sometimes think that they're from South or Central America. And I'm surprised when they tell me, no, I'm Spanish, from Spain, because of that accent.
It's very musical.
Yeah.
So those are the main facts about the islands. Here are some more curious facts that maybe you wouldn't know. Lord Nelson...
Who was Lord Nelson?
I'm pleased you asked me that, Reza. Lord Nelson was a famous lord and sailor and war strategician. How would you say that?
Strategist,
thank you. And war strategist who famous for defeating Napoleon at Waterloo. But before that, he has a battle on Tenerife, the Battle of Santa Cruz in 1797. And if you've seen any portraits painted of this famous sailor, Lord Nelson, he's only got one arm. And that's because he lost his arm during that battle when the British were beaten by the Spanish on Tenerife.
Craig, we mentioned earlier that the Canary Islands were stunning. Stunning means extremely beautiful, so beautiful that you stop and think, wow. What makes the Canary Islands geographically so stunning?
The whole chain of islands is volcanic, so because of volcanic eruptions millions and millions of years ago, a lot of the rocks and the beaches, the impression of the islands is very volcanic, which of course that contrasted with the beautiful sea around the islands makes them very impressive. In fact, some of the beaches are famous for having unusual coloured sand. I think some of the sand is dark in some areas and a particular volcanic reddy colour in other areas. Is that true, Carla? So the beaches are famous for being beautiful and very attractive also because of the volcanic history of the region.
Now, as Carla is proof, the inhabitants, the permanent inhabitants, not the tourists, the permanent inhabitants of the Canaries today are Spanish. But did you know they weren't always The original inhabitants of the islands were, we think, probably a Berber tribe called the Guanches. Berbers.
Where did the Berbers come from?
Well, we associate, above all, North Africa, so Morocco, Sahara, Algeria, that kind of area, around the Sahara Desert, with the Berbers. These are people who predate. That means they go before the Arabs. So the Guanches were a Berber tribe who inhabited the island before anybody else. But, there have been many explorers, as is always the case with islands, explorers, invaders from all over the world over the centuries. Craig already mentioned the battle with Nelson, and the Spanish and the French, and the Portuguese also play an important part in the history of the Canaries. They actually occupied the parts of the island from a while that they took from the Spanish.
In fact, I think Christopher Columbus, speaking of explorers, Cristobal Colón, he stopped in the Canary Islands on his way to discover America.
Yes, I think I've heard that it was an important stop-off point for many explorers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they went to the Canaries first to get ready, then for the big part of the journey across the Atlantic. And we've already spoken about the accent in Canaries. But apart from that, they actually have a dialect. There are a few words. So not just the accent, there are a few words, which I'm sure Cara knows, but we don't, which are very particular to the Canary Islands. And it's thought that some of them probably come from Portuguese, actually.
That makes sense.
Yeah, curious.
And the island La Gomera had developed a whistling language. To whistle, Whistle, is silbar. So people on La Gomera, on this island, whistled in order to communicate across the very wide valleys on the island. The whistling language is called Silbo Gomero, and it's kind of a whistling form of Castilian Spanish. And it's used not really to have long conversations, but more to communicate some important news or announcements from one valley to the next valley, from one village to the next village. So that's a really interesting fact about the island of La Gomera.
Now, most people around the world have heard of a very famous bird, the canary. Una canaria in Spanish, I suppose.
To sing like a canary, if you're a thief or a robber.
Yeah, so the canary is a very famous bird, but it's named after the islands. Don't think it's the other way around. Don't think that the islands are named after the bird. No, presumably the British and other people first discovered the bird on the islands, so that is why they decided to call the bird the canary.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if this is checked fact or whether it's perhaps folklore, but apparently the islands are named after dogs. Is that true, Carla? Because canes is Latin for dogs, so canes became Canaria because of the large number of dogs on the island way back. Although I also read in another corner of the internet that the name may have come from seals, focas, or sea lions that barked like dogs, because there were a lot of sea lions on the islands.
Oh, wow.
So I think the jury might still be out on that, and I don't know what the opinion of people who live on the islands is, so perhaps you'd like to send us a message and tell us what you think. Where did the name come from? Is it named after dogs, sea lions?
Or sea lions that sounded like dogs?
Yeah, because when sea lions bark, and it is barking, they sound like dogs.
Wow.
Interesting.
Now, certainly Spanish people, but also other people, will know about bananas from the Canary Islands. And as it happens, they're my favourite bananas. And I'm not just saying that.
Me too.
I apologise.
They're sweeter, aren't they?
They're sweeter than others and they're smaller. I apologise. Yeah, there's going to be angry Colombians and Ecuadorians listening to this. Your bananas are very good. And I know many people who prefer your bananas because they're bigger for whatever reason. They like them harder. But I must admit, I am a big fan of bananas from the Canary Islands.
You might be starting a banana war here. You realise that?
Oh, no, not a banana war. A banana, dangerous weapon, of course. I don't know if it's true, but it's said that you can spot a banana from the Canary Islands because it's small and it's spotted. If it's not spotted, they say, oh, no spots, not Canaries.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Got to be spotted because not all bananas are spotted. That's what they say. I don't know if it's true.
Con
Pecas.
pecas.
Manchitas.
Con pecas, manchitas.
So, as you know, if you're Spanish, for sure, bananas have been a very important produce. A produce is food that's produced, the produce of the islands for decades. However, I just discovered, doing my research, that until the mid-19th century, wine from locally grown grapes on the islands had been the staple produce. The staple, S-T-A-P-L-E, means like the basic, most important thing that's produced. It was the staple produce, not bananas. But the grapes were decimated. They were completely destroyed by a disease called phylloxera, which wiped out a lot of grapes all over Europe, including in Canary Islands. Now, today, some wine is produced in the Canary Islands, but not as much as before. Bananas are much more important now. Craig, what other products do you think of as coming from the Canary Islands?
Well, grapes did occur to me. In fact, I read somewhere on the internet that the Canary Islands may have the oldest vines in the world. A vine is where the grapes grow. Grapes grow on a vine, V-I-N-E. And very, very difficult for vines to grow on volcanic rock. They have to put their roots, raíces, into the moisture that comes from the rock. So I think because of the age of the islands, 20 million years, they may have the oldest vines in the world, even though they're not actually producing grapes and wine today.
Oh, well, I didn't know that, but I tell you one thing. I love some white wine from Canary Islands. Oh, they make really good white wine there.
So they're still making it today?
Yeah, really, really good. I think tobacco is also made in the Canary Islands, as far as I know. Spanish tobacco was traditionally collected from the Canary Islands, like ducados. Originally, those Spanish cigarettes, they got the tobacco from the Canary Islands as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oranges as well, and a few other fruits. But above all, I think of bananas.
Me too. Some very popular films have been made on the islands, and some of these I've heard of and seen, and some I haven't. Fast and Furious 6, I haven't seen any of those. I have seen one. I think I saw Fast and Furious 1 or 2.
I think by seeing number 1, I can guess what 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are about.
People driving very quickly. The Time That Land Forgot? No. The Land That Time Forgot, with dinosaurs and everything. I've seen that. That's very good. I didn't know that was filmed on the Canary Islands.
Me neither.
Clash of the Titans. Have you seen that?
Yep.
Any good?
Not bad. Not bad. Is that that's Liam Neeson, isn't it?
I haven't seen it.
So, yeah.
No idea.
It's not bad, but the Greek gods, yeah.
Exodus, Gods and Kings. Haven't seen that.
Me neither.
Yeah. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Very famous books and filmed as well. I haven't seen those.
I have. Well, I've seen the TV series. Have the books also been made into a film?
Yes.
Okay. Don't think I've seen the film, but I've seen the series, which was very good.
Rambo 5, Last Blood. I've seen that. Very, very good. I did not know it was filmed on the Canary Islands. Solo, A Star Wars Story. No, haven't seen that.
I've seen that, and I'm about to get into horrendous trouble by saying I didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it?
Because it was a copy of an earlier Star Wars film, but slightly different. If it's the one I'm thinking of, right? It's one of the later ones, isn't it? Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the later ones, only the originals.
If it's one of the later Star Wars, I think, I think it's the one I've seen. I just thought it was a copy of like the very first one, to be honest.
But did the scenery stand out?
Oh, the scenery was impressive. Yeah, for sure. That was the cinematography was the best thing about it. But I thought the plot was just a copy of the very first Star Wars, which I believe was filmed in, was it Tunisia? The first one was filmed in Tunisia.
Or Morocco.
Morocco, maybe?
Yeah, North Africa, for sure. with the desert scenes.
So not that far away from the Canary Islands.
Yeah. Fuerteventura is an island I have not visited, but I would love to go to because I've heard such wonderful things about it. It's an island that's over 20 million years old, as we mentioned before, and also has some of the most beautiful beaches in the Canaries. So that is definitely on my list as a place to visit.
Did you say 20 million years?
Yep.
That's almost as long as Craig and I have been teaching English.
Well, I thought you were going to say podcasting. It feels like that sometimes. La Palma, any interesting facts about La Palma? Because that's one of the two capitals of the province.
Yes, you might think of tourism and bananas and all that type of thing, but La Palma has one of the largest collections of astronomical telescopes in the world, including the largest, which is 10.4 meters. That's a big one.
I'm thinking it's 10.4 meters wide, not long. We're talking about the size of the lens, right? That's huge.
Ooh, 10.4 meters. Imagine that would be a very big banana.
I'm sure our friend Nestor, who podcasts about astronomy, knows that fact about La Palma. I wonder if Nestor's been to La Palma to see the telescopes there. That must be amazing.
I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the actor Javier Bardem, not only in Spain, but he's a big Hollywood star as well. Did you know he was born in Gran Canaria?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. He was born there in 1969. You probably know he's won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in the film No Country for Old Men. He's a Canario.
He's one of my favourite Spanish actors. I really love watching him in anything, in any films, and he's made some very, very good films with very different roles in his career so far. Another famous person from Gran Canaria is David Silva, who was born in 1986. He's playing for Manchester City as we record this podcast, and he used to play for Valencia, where we are podcasting from. And David Silva helped Spain win the World Cup in 2010 and other competitions as well. So he's been playing internationally for Spain for many years, and he's from Gran Canaria.
Here's an interesting historical fact that people, particularly outside Spain, might not know. The Spanish Civil War, which was fought in the late 1930s, actually started in the Canaries. You might think that's a bit odd because, you know, there's not so many people there. It's very far away. Why would a war start on the Canary Islands? Well, it's simply because General Franco's headquarters were in Las Palmas.
What are headquarters?
Your headquarters are la sede. So a company has headquarters, or an army or part of an army has headquarters. Their central base. So his headquarters were in Las Palmas. He was the general commandant of the Canaries. So from there, he planned his strategy. So first he consolidated his forces in the Canary Islands. Then he moved slowly up through Spain.
I did not know that. We really enjoy doing these episodes occasionally about countries, finding out where you're from, finding out a little bit about you. And we've also received 2 or 3 requests to speak about other countries during the summer, so we will be doing that. If you enjoy these country-based episodes, please let us know what you'd like us to speak about next. Reza, where can people send their voice messages?
Send your voice message to speakpipe.com/English podcast. Or you could always send us an email or to Craig.
Emails to me at Craig, CRAIG, at inglespodcast.com.
Or belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're interested in an audio course, you can find courses from La Mansión del Inglés at store.mansioningles.net.
As always, we'd like to give a big thank you to all our Patreon supporters. And we'd love to say all your names, as we used to a long time ago. But now there are so many of you, we don't have time.
Thankfully, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Your names are on the show notes. So go to English Podcast /282 and you'll see your name there. But we just have enough time to mention our most recent sponsors. Craig, who are our most recent Patreon supporters?
Many thanks to Julen Renteria Antuñano, Oscar Sanchez Molina, María Luz López Comfort 1.4.
I love that bit.
I don't know why that's there. María Luz, why did you put 1.4 at the end of your name? I'm sure there's a good reason. Eduard Fonseca, Rox Col, Néstor Stengel, Fernando de Terro, Luis Antonio Echeverría Díaz, Enrique Delgado, Jesús Acevedo, Francisca Trujillo, María Alejandra Maldonado, José Luis Ortega Morales, Eder Massa, Patricia Conde. Thank you very much for your support of this podcast. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, we've got truckers and long-distance lorry drivers.
Ah, that's Tony.
That's Tony. Finally, Tony.
Finally,
we got it
Tony.
ready. Hey, we haven't forgotten about you.
So we hope you're listening. Join us next week when we speak about truckers. And until then, thanks for listening this week. It's goodbye from Reza.
And bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.